I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. F*** it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
There we go. It's Tuesday, April 29th, another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. We appreciate you. If you're watching live on YouTube and Twitter, welcome. How is everyone? Good morning, kiddos. You can also stream the show live audio platform, by the way. Download the Puck Sports mobile app to your iPhone or Android phone. Just go to the Google Play Store for Android phones. Also, go to the App Store for Apple users. Yes, we've got our own Puck Sports mobile app. You can take us on the move, on the go, and also they're in Apple CarPlay. Now, if you watch a little bit of the live show, listen to it, and you're like, well, I can't catch all of it right away. You can always go back and watch and listen to it later. Up on YouTube, just search Puck Sports. When you're there, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, try to answer as many as we possibly can. And then if you'd like to just old school, listen on an old podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, you can always find everything up at pucksports.com. I did something new yesterday for our Sports Pit, which is for Puck's Posse members, our new weekly podcast that comes out on Mondays with Matt Stretch Johnson, Steve Sandmeyer, two former KJR alums. We didn't do the video up there, and kind of want to make it not a video, but so we put up just on the audio platforms up there on the Puck's Posse page. But we also, on the normal podcast platform for Puck Sports, we gave you a 16-minute little teaser, little sneak preview of it. So if you haven't ever listened to it and you have yet to subscribe to become a Puck's Posse member, I gave you 16 minutes or so of this week's show as we talk a little bit about the Mariners and just this surprising start that they're on. Also about this media circus involving the NFL draft this past weekend there with Sheduer Sanders. Steve Sandmeyer, he's got a lot of opinions on that one. And it's 16 minutes of an hour and 10-minute podcast that we do once a week. So if you're on the fence about subscribing, maybe that will push you over to subscribe to become a Puck's Posse member. All right, Daily Puck Drop. We're broadcasting live from the Limback Lumber Studios. There's that Limback Lumber hat. It's proud sponsor of our Little League team. Got a game tonight. Best of luck to us. Contractors, they got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. They've got the largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service. Why? Because they've been doing it since 1930. Give Limback Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbacklumber.com. Of course, you can follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, All Puck Sports, TikTok, Puck_sports. And again, as always, follow everything, watch everything, pucksports.com. All right, coming up on the show today, we'll get into the Pac-2 media deal. Just was announced early this morning. Of course, John Canzano told you about it last week. And then it was kind of delayed because of a scheduling issue with, I think it was Oregon State and Houston. So it got pushed to finally being finalized today. We'll get Canzano later today. He'll join us around 11 o'clock. Jim Duquette will join us in about 5 minutes, get the very latest in Major League Baseball, all the top storylines, including your Los Marineros, who are just on fire right now. Danny Kelly, our last visit. I'm sad about this one. It's our last visit with Danny Kelly as we wrap up the portion of the NFL talk here for a while. Danny will be back on in the fall, and maybe some special appearances throughout the rest of the spring and the summer. But final thoughts from Danny Kelly on the NFL draft. The Seahawks, of course, we'll ask him about the Sanders debacle, just all of it, retiring numbers left and right. So we'll get Danny's thoughts coming up a little bit later, around 10:30, 10:35. If you don't know the news there on the Pac-2 media deal that John and I discussed last week that finally came out today, ESPN, CBS, and CW are a part of it. So all the home games for both Oregon State and Washington State have been released. The start times are out. I mean, and listen, it's April 29th. Now, some of the start times I don't think a lot of people are going to love, but at least you know. If you're going to Corvallis, if you're a Bee fan, if you're going to Washington State, going to Pullman, you're a Coug fan. At least you can plan now. They got a lot of night games, and it's not going to sit well with a lot of people. At least where I sit, I sit in. We call our section it's Spokane Valley, because everybody in my section where I sit is Spokane, except for actually not everyone. The family in front of me, they're from the Tri-Cities, so it impacts them, and it's nothing's going to be perfect. That's what I've got to deal with. Beggars can't be choosers. We need money. We need exposure, and these time slots and these times of these games are going to maximize the exposure, because it's something that is not that was not there last year in college football. Pac-12 after dark was not a thing last year. There were hardly any games. I remember I'm sitting there Saturday night going, well, when does Arizona and Cal kick off at 7:30 in Tucson? When's that game? Didn't have that last year. And I think the media people, I think folks at ESPN and other platforms, they saw that and realized what they were missing out on. So there are a lot of night games. The Idaho game, Wazoo, Idaho, will kick off at 7 o'clock. That's going to be on the CW network. That's August 30th. September 6th game against San Diego State, also on the CW, 7:15. The Apple Cup's going to be on CBS, and it's either going to September 20th. Sorry, I had to take a sip there of some water. The Apple Cup, 4:30 or 5 on CBS, so not on Peacock, thank God. You get CBS, which is a great network. The Toledo game, that's an afternoon game, 12:30. Louisiana Tech's on the CW network, that's at 7. Oregon State, November 29th, that will be 3:30 on the CW. So for the Cougs, they've got 3 night games at home. The Idaho, San Diego State, and Louisiana Tech all starting at 7. For Oregon State, they've got 4, I believe. They got Sam Houston at 7 o'clock on the CW. They've got Houston, which is a Friday night game on September 26th at 7:30. And then Cal, 7:30 on ESPN. Now, for Cal, they've got 2 games on ESPN. The Houston one on Friday night and Cal on Saturday. Cougs don't have anything on ESPN, but it's good to see ESPN back in the fold with these 2. And we'll get more with this with John coming up at 11 o'clock. I do think this gives you some insight on what they are planning for 26. I probably, and I'll ask this to John, I'd be stunned if these were not the networks, CBS, ESPN, and CW, for the 26 year and forward for the new Pac-12 involving all the other Mountain West schools. My guess is this is what it's going to look like. I think ESPN is very desirous of these late night starts, and I think it's going to become a thing, more of a thing than it's ever been before. And so you're going to have to get used to playing night games, a lot of them. And again, I know it's a factor, right? It fouls up people's plans when you've got to play so late. But again, it's what it is. You know, there's not many other opportunities, right? There's just not a lot of other time slots that are desirable for those 2 schools or that conference coming up. So you kind of have to take what you get. So I think you'll see more and more night games. And then for people that travel over there to Pullman, specifically, it's going to be hard. One, because you don't get, this is where it screws people going over there, is because the hotels there require a 2-night minimum. So if you thought, well, maybe I'll just drive over Saturday, leave in the morning, and then stay the night and leave, you can't do it because you got to pay for 2 nights. And I'm telling you, I already, buddy, we were texting earlier today, telling me that they've already booked hotels for the Apple Cup. $1,000 to stay at the Cougarland Motel. Now, when I tell you, you know where Earl Thomas did the interview with Chris Egan at the Quality Inn, looked like it was just on the side of 99. That's Cougarland Motel. That's what it is. And that's $1,000. It's just stupid. It's just dumb what they do over there. All right. We'll have more on that with Canzano coming up at around 11 o'clock. Every week, we got to talk a little baseball with one of our favorite guys in the world, Jim Duquette, MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 89. You can follow him on social media at Jim Duquette GM. He is our GM here at Puck Sports, and he joins us right now. Jim, how are you, sir?
How are you? It's been a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, I had a little passing of my dog, which any dog lovers out there will know how much they are part of your family. And so I had to put down my dog last week. It was a tough one, but it was the right thing to do. Do you have a dog? I don't know if we've
I've got two, and we just went through this with our older dog. Now she's able to pull through it, but I know what you're going through. It's the worst. You love your dog so much, you do everything for him, but that's tough. So condolences to you and your family. That's a rough one.
Thank you. It was definitely tough a couple of days for sure, and but she is missed and loved. I tell you that it's too short. The dog life is too short. That's the only way I can say it.
It is. We were just talking about this, my daughter and I, a few weeks ago, about our oldest dog, Maple. She had a mouth cancer, melanoma, and she's 13 now, and it's just you're right. It's just they're the best, and they're not here long enough.
Nope, definitely not. My dog was 13 and a half. We could have done a surgery, and they just, at that age, it's just really not the right thing to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, no worries about last week. Certainly, we're thinking about you. Well, since we've last talked,
what
the best offensive team in baseball resides in Seattle, Washington, Jim.
Just as we predicted. 6 straight series wins, just like we predicted.
Wow. I was talking to some buddies about this yesterday. We can't make sense of it. We don't understand how and why.
Yeah.
How? What are they doing? I mean, they've lost. Think about, I'm not going to put Ryan Bliss up there, some impactful player, but he's just starting second baseman. He's out. Victor Robles is out for an extended period of time, and I think we all fretted about what that would mean to have him out. But since those two departures, they have been red hot.
They've been red hot. It's interesting too is in the season so far, at least in the American League, they're ranked third in home runs. Another thing I wouldn't have predicted, right? So they're second in home runs, third in runs scored. The strikeouts have been manageable. It's better than it was last year so far. Sometimes early season, and we started to see a little bit of it with their approach. It changed last year with Edgar Martinez and that philosophy. And Kevin Seitzer is a really good hitting coach. I wasn't quite sure why Atlanta let him go, but just all of those things kind of combined. You have to get production from guys that you're unexpected. I think Dylan Moore probably falls into that equation. Polanco probably a little bit over his skis. But it's so far different than it was last year, and he wasn't healthy. Moving him into the DH role primarily has helped. Hey, the Williamson kid. Last time I was on, you and I were like, "Hey, give me a scouting report on Williamson, right?" And I'm like, "Oh, he can hit a little bit, but I don't know." Like he's hit way better than I thought. So you're getting some above average performances from guys that you weren't really expecting. I think you kind of check this and say, all right, well, let's build on the positive, but it's like a cautionary tale that you could see this come back a little bit, and that's the only thing you got to look at. Say, hey, ride this out. If I was in the front office right now, I got through the first month, ride this thing out. All right, we're a month closer to the trade deadline where we can go out and try to make a trade for an offensive piece.
Yeah, I think I think there's a lot of people out there. I would include myself that is waiting kind of for the other shoe to drop with this right now. I know it's not going to keep up. I mean, I know Polanco's not going to hit 377 for the rest of the season, and there is going to be a drop off with Ben Williamson and some of these other guys. I mean, they are playing above, their weight right now.
Right.
But I don't know. I guess I don't know how far that drop off will be. I think some encouraging signs would be this. One, I didn't expect them to be, number 2 in home runs. No. What's encouraging is their on-base percentage and they're drawing walks at an incredible rate. I think last time I checked, I think you just did this yesterday, I think they're number 1 in baseball in this right now.
Yeah.
And then they still are striking out but they're not striking out as much
Right.
as they did a year ago. They've been able to drop it by I think almost 4% now from where they were a year ago. So there is a little bit of, okay, they've got a little bit better plate discipline, and credit to Edgar and Kevin Seitzer and those guys that have taken over. So there are some encouraging signs of why they are better offensively.
Yeah, and all those primarily, you can get by with a higher strikeout rate. Not you don't want to lead the league in it for sure, but higher strikeout rate if you're walking, if you're getting on base, you're putting pressure, you're getting more opportunities. It's not always going to lead to runs, but you're more times than not, it's going to lead to a better overall offensive approach. Sometimes you're running up deeper pitch counts. That's why the guys. So sometimes that's leading the league in strikeouts or cutting down can be misleading on the strikeouts, because sometimes what comes with that is an over aggressiveness. Like with the Rangers right now, their offense is the worst in the league, which is a big surprise to me. And their on base percentage is one of the worst as well, because they are just so aggressive. So that they're swinging at everything and they're chasing. Like, you're not seeing a lot of chase with the Mariners offense right now either. Not chasing out of the strike zone as much. So the walks are there. And I think that part of it has been good. Their stolen base rate is at the top of the American League right now, even, which is a surprise to me. Like, what I mean? There's some things that now, aggressiveness on the base pass, that is something that we've never really talked about much with the Mariners.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is something that you can maintain, and I like that kind of balance to an offense, because when your offense isn't swinging the bat well, you're going through those downturns, you can still generate runs from base running, stolen bases, being aggressive. So that aspect, that mindset has been different this year, and maybe it's because of the change in managers positions at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're fifth in the OPS. Their on-base percentage is fourth in baseball. And then again, you mentioned it, they're third in stolen bases with 35. Cubs and Brewers and Pirates, the only teams that have more right now. And then in terms of home runs, they're third. They are three behind the Yankees and then four behind the Dodgers. And so, you look at the total number of strikeouts, and again, they still are striking out a ton. But I guess it's just not the good news. It's just not as bad as it was the last few years. They currently are 24th with 256 strikeouts, which again is too many. But to your point earlier, they are balancing that out with the on base, getting on, and then hitting home runs. And it's just they're not dead last anymore. And so they're slowly but surely climbing themselves up.
Yeah, I think that's a positive sign. And again, if it's in that range, it's still not what you want. It may get even a little bit better, as the season goes on there. But if it stayed in that range, and it came with the on base, it came with the walks, it came with the base running aggressiveness, you can live with that. I still think, though, when you look at this overall, our preseason evaluation of this group is still on intact. Like, it's not going to be an above average offensive lineup. And so, whether it's one or two guys that they're going to go out, whether it's, how much capital in terms of their prospects and their assets, how much are they going to spend on that? Like, there's not an awful lot available on the market. Definitely not anything available at the moment. Luis Roberts, obviously the biggest name, but there'll be other names that will fit, I think, in that spot once we get a little closer to the deadline. To me, it's like, all right, let's keep this pitching intact. A couple of those injuries, obviously to Gilbert and Kirby, are alarming, and why you, me, everyone who's watching the Mariners is pounding the table for more offense and to spend a little bit of money, because the risk of pitching staying healthy year in and year out, nobody has been able to figure that aspect out, and you were starting to see a little bit of the injury bug creep into the Mariners, at least with the starters.
Gilbert will be out for 2 weeks with the forearm strain. I mean, how concerned should people be about where he's at, and how long, if it's 2 weeks doing nothing and then reevaluated, what kind of time frame do you expect him back?
So 2 weeks of no throwing, and then you got at least another 2 weeks of throwing, and then you're probably doing a rehab assignment of a couple starts. I mean, you're talking about over a month and a half. I mean, you're talking into June for him. And what's concerning, if everything goes well, then okay, that's fine. But that elbow, with the way he, with his pitches in particular, the little splitty that he had, I mean, that does put some stress on anything off speed tends to put stress on there. So you do have to be careful, cautious with him. And, I think that they obviously are going to be, but, that to me, there is a workload that he's had as you've seen over there, and we've all seen over the last couple of years too. And so, yeah, you wonder a little bit about that workload that's kind of creeped up over the last couple of years. The one thing, he doesn't really have that sweeper, right? I mean, I'm trying to remember now his pitch mix. The sweepers, if this was a guy that threw a ton of sweepers, that new pitch that we've seen, the big breaking curveball that looks like a slider, but it's 20 inches of vertical break or horizontal break or more. Those guys are tending to have a much higher injury rate. And this is more anecdotal, but around the league, I'm seeing less of that pitch being thrown. There's still guys throwing it because it's effective, but they're not throwing it. It doesn't seem like as much. So it's just something to keep an eye on.
I think he mentioned that it was the increase in the split finger, that he felt the pain when he threw the split finger, but when he threw other pitches, he didn't feel the pain. And if you look at his rate of throwing the split finger this year, that it's drastically higher that he was throwing in the beginning of the season.
Yeah. And the split is something when you are throwing it, you do have to be careful about not throwing it too much. It's a pitch that you can really fall in love with. Gossman's a guy who throws a lot of split fingers more than what Gilbert did. Gilbert was starting to throw it and being able to throw it for strikes and keeping it in the strike zone. It's a huge weapon. Like it is. Hitters have a hard time, picking it up. The differential between fastballs and splits, you can get away with a fastball down in the zone, and then that split. Hitters have a hard time picking up that drop, the lack of spin on the split finger. So, it's an easy pitch to overthrow. And, so that's probably where, they back him off a little bit on that pitch and he goes to others. That is probably how you'll see things go when he comes back. We'll have to wait and see, but it doesn't surprise me that, hearing that with the split, that's where the issue, at least what they've identified as an issue.
Hey, Jared, former Mariner Jarred Kelenic sent down. He was optioned to AAA there for the Braves. We haven't talked since the whole incident that he had, not running, not hustling to second base. He gets thrown out. That whole controversy with Brian Snedeker and then Ronald Acuna and just the fallout of that. What happened to him? I mean, we just got done with the NFL draft. There's going to be plenty of guys that are picked in the first round of the NFL draft that are not going to amount to anything. Their careers are going to be busts. And especially top picks, somebody, a couple guys in the top 10, and there'll be plenty of guys later in the draft that will be great. Did evaluators miss on him? Why has he not become the player that a lot of people thought he was going to become?
I think there's a couple things that stand out. I thought he was going to be a good player too. When I saw him with the Mets, and actually I saw him as an amateur, I saw him as a high schooler, and I thought, hey, this kid has everything that you look for in a draft pick and a hitter. I think that he has the skills, right? I think that what's happened is he's had a hard time handling high end velocity, and usually you see guys make adjustments and they figure some things out. He's been slow to do that. But number two, there's something internally, and I remember Jerry DiPoto talking to me about how much, how tough he was on himself when he wouldn't succeed in a game. I think there's something to that, and where it's like he's not able to handle the failure as well as, I mean, everyone has to handle failure in hitting as there's so much of it, but he is extremely hard on himself. And I think that, in terms of maybe not making the adjustments, but also unwillingness to kind of work through some of those areas, the difficulties that you have. It's just, an extreme. We haven't talked about, maybe we did with Jarren Duran
Right.
of the Red Sox. Like, he was really tough on himself to the degree where he became depressed and was suicidal. I'm not saying Kelenic is that way, but there are guys out there that have a hard time handling the lack of success. And so, if he goes down into minor leagues, it wouldn't surprise me if he figured it out by making a couple of adjustments. But he, like Pete Crow Armstrong with the Cubs right now,
Yeah.
who I liked also right around the same time as Kelenic. Like he's made some adjustments, not just to his swing, but his stance. And you don't really hear that out of Kelenic very much.
Yeah. Still time. I mean, that's the
Still
thing
time.
that's, tantalizing with him is because he's still young. So there's still time for him to get it going.
There is, and that's the thing. He's been on the scene for so long. He came to the
Yeah.
big leagues so early. Sometimes that goes against you too. You rush into the big leagues at 21 and 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I really think that he's lost a great deal of confidence. And I thought he might click in Atlanta, but it really hasn't.
You mentioned Duran. What should baseball do with that fan that interacted with him in Cleveland?
I think for me, he shouldn't be allowed back in any ballpark. That is such an extreme. Like there's certain amount of that you allow fans to express. They're they're going to give grief to the opposing team and cheer against, and a lot of that. And some of it's in poor taste. Like in some of these markets, you hear things that that are really, really bad. But there's a line too that you feel like, and I feel like when you cross the line, it. And that fan clearly crossed the line in this particular situation. I'm glad that the Guardians security moved so quickly on it, and they were able to throw him out. And I would be surprised if he's allowed in any ballpark, not just in Cleveland's ballpark. The guys in Yankee Stadium who took the ball out of Mookie Betts' glove last year in the World Series, if you remember that, they're banned from Yankee Stadium from coming back. Like this, what happened in Cleveland was far worse in my mind.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Duran was getting into it with a fan. Duran had battled depression, contemplated suicide. The fan said to Duran, "You should have killed yourself."
Right.
Yeah, I just lifetime ban. I'm in agreement on that one. There's just no place for that type of behavior, and fans in all sports have certainly crossed the line many, many times. I want a couple more things for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to transition. I'm going to try to transition from that to this. I got a laugh out of the reason why Jose Altuve wanted to switch to hitting second.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, he's a leadoff hitter. He's not playing second anymore. He's playing left field. And I was thinking, and I saw the headline, he wants to hit second. Now I'm thinking, he's got some good reason. Maybe he's more comfortable hitting second. His reason was it's too long of a run from left field to the dugout for him to hit leadoff anymore.
To get ready. To get ready. Yeah, he said this.
Is that true?
The line was, I need an extra 10 seconds.
An extra 10 seconds. Well, we all could use an extra 10 seconds, if you know what I mean. But I mean, come on, really? That's why he wants to hit second?
At the end of the day, aren't we always trying to squeeze out the final 10 seconds of something?
It paid off for him last night. He was great. He had 2 hits, I think 3 hits, maybe a home run.
It did. The interesting thing, they're going to give him a little bit of leeway because they were in a bind. He was not playing well at second base, right? And his metrics, defensive metrics, were going backwards. Now, I did not think they should have moved him to left field. Like they've been one of the winningest organizations over the last 8 years. And who's the guy who's played second base during that entire stretch? Jose Altuve. So it hasn't been that bad. I don't care. You can tell me any metric, but are you winning with him at second base? The answer is yes. But they felt like he needed to, move positions and go to left field, and it was better for the team. And so he willingly did it, and he really didn't balk at it. He went spring training, he took fly balls out there, and it wasn't perfect. I think me and a few other, Eduardo Perez, he and I were talking about this, and he's brought it up occasionally. He does the ESPN Sunday night broadcast. He says, I wonder about whether, it's going to, from the leadoff spot, rushing in there to get ready, it's a bigger deal than what people were talking about. He first guessed this back in the spring, and I think that what they would try to do is just take that bottom of the first. He would run right to the on deck circle. The bat boy would have all of his equipment there, and he's still kind of getting his breath ready. He's breathing. It's a longer run, All of things what he's still getting used to. So he went, hey, well, how about putting me in the 2 spot and moving Pena to the 1 hole? So, coincidence, probably. I think they have to give him a little more rope because of
Yeah.
the way he handled the position there in left field. Personally, I think he's still so good in the leadoff spot. Their lineup is a lot better with him there. But, if he came to you on that, I think you'd have to defer to him. Say, you know what? All right, we'll give you the extra time. We'll bet you second.
Last thing for you, the Rockies, they got a chance to break the all-time record for losses. Lack of wins. God. I mean, it's so bad. What are they, 4? What are they, 4 in
22?
4 and 22.
Yeah.
That's
their
so
pace.
bad.
Do you like paces at this time of the year?
Yes, especially with this. Yes.
24 wins is what their pace is. That would be a record number of losses by a long shot. It'll get a little better, but I'll tell you what's interesting. I was in their spring training camp. And if you want to talk about an organization that gets along really well, that's one of the better in terms of like things that they do between major league and minor league. They do things together. They meetings together. It's a fun clubhouse, at least in spring training. But I don't know about the effort sometimes when I see that, and they're clearly behind the curve when it comes to some of the modern player development strategies out there, some of the technology that's out there. They're really behind the 8 ball in a lot of those areas, and it's showing on the field.
Oh, interesting. Well, part of me wants to see him break the record, just to have something to follow for the rest of the season. You're the best with your time. Always appreciate it, Jim. Thank you as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, talk next week, Puck. Thanks.
There he is, Jim Duquette, with us every single week from MLB Network Radio, Sirius XM Channel 89. Follow him on social media. There at Jim Duquette GM, giving you the very latest on baseball, the current state here with the Mariners, and all of it. All right. Kind of a sad day for us because we are wrapping up our NFL draft kind of coverage and kind of NFL draft with our next guest, Danny Kelly. As always, all of our NFL draft coverage leading up to it was brought to you by the one and only, the greatest brewery in all of the land.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
And Danny Kelly joins us right now. Hi, Danny. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Danny joins us, of course, senior staff writer at the Ringer Fantasy Football Show, the Ringer NFL Draft Show. Follow him on social media at Danny B. Kelly. We talk all things NFL Draft, which is brought to you by Georgetown's Tavern Beer. Easy drinking domestic-style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops. 4.2% brewed by our good friends at Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's, Bodhisattva, and Rogers Pilsner. All right. Well, how did you sum that up, huh? Did you like the draft? What grade did you give the Seahawks?
I gave the Seahawks an A.
Yeah.
And it was not because I'm a massive homer, which I've been accused of being before. But, I thought they did a great job, honestly, like addressing needs all throughout the draft. I liked the first couple of picks that they made. I think the Milroe pick has a ton of upside, so I'm super excited about that one. Continuing to talk myself into it more and more. Overall, just a good draft. Moved around the board a little bit here and there, traded up, traded back. I thought they played it all pretty well. Didn't get too cute, which I love to see.
Well, and they started off the draft by not getting too cute and going with a Gray Zabel, who proceeded to crush Busch Lights right afterward.
That's like a plus, right? That he's talking about crushing Busch Lights on the team, on the call with the team.
Come on, man. Guy's got a mullet, a mustache.
Yeah,
he's a farmer and he drinks Busch Light. What else do you want in your offensive lineman?
Yeah, that's true. I'm sold. But yeah, I mean, I think he's perfect for what they need. Obviously, a little bit of adding talent to the interior or offensive line is huge. Gives them a little bit of versatility because I think that he can play center or guard if they wanted to. I mean, in a pinch, that he could probably play tackle. That's what he played in college. Not that I think that's his best spot. I think put him in at guard and kind of see how it all goes. Obviously, I'm getting excited about what this offense could be with some of the additional weapons that they've added to the offense this offseason. So, Yeah, I mean, I think the Zabel pick was just like it was just a drive right down the fairway. Not too sexy, not gonna like get everybody going, but it is what they needed.
What about yeah, I agree with you. It's just we talked about it so much leading up that this was going to be the pick, and then I convinced myself, well, then they're not going to pick him because everyone's mocking Gray Zabel to him, and then they do it. So they certainly fit a need. They addressed the offensive line later. Do you think they did enough in addressing it, or would you have wanted more?
I mean, I don't think you can't do too much in addressing the offensive line, in my opinion. It would have been nice maybe if they turned around and picked another offensive lineman, maybe in the second round there. But it's not that I dislike the Arroyo pick, but I wouldn't have been sad if they picked another offensive lineman there. I did not watch him before the draft, but Bryce Cable-Dew from Kansas and Mason Richmond from Iowa, the two guys that they chose late in the draft. I think both of those guys have potential to end up being at least rotational guys that they can kind of use as backups. They both are like sort of broad-bodied college tackles that are going to play guard probably in the NFL. Both of them have a lot of experience. So I thought that was smart to kind of look at the 6th, 7th round and add a few guys with some starting experience. So both of those guys were multi-year starters with big sort of, aggressive demeanors as blockers. And, so from that point of view, I like that they added those two guys late in the draft, but we're picking
super athletic too. I mean, and that's kind of what stood out to that class in general. Was just the athletic testing and just how like off the charts they were with almost every pick.
Yeah, this was like something the Seahawks did for a while back in the day, like in the early 2010s, they were really into the SPARK score. So something that Pete Carroll was involved with back when he was at USC. This is a Nike collaboration or whatever. And so they have all these camps in high school. Excuse me. They have all these camps in high school where the kids will come in and do all the different tests, and you make this SPARK score, and it kind of just tells you how overall athletic, explosive, twitchy these players are. And the Seahawks had kind of gotten into that for a while, but then they kept taking SPARK players that were really high in SPARK and then trying to switch them positions. So they would, they took Sokoli or whatever his name was back in the day, tried to turn him into a different position. They tried a couple guys where they put him on the defensive line versus the offensive line. There's a handful of guys it didn't really work out for them, but I appreciated the effort. But they kind of had gotten away from that a little bit. And this class, like you said, is one of the more, I think I saw Next Gen Stats saying is one of the top athletic classes they've seen in the last 10 years or something like that. So it definitely is, from the top to the bottom, full of a bunch of guys that are really fast, really athletic, really explosive. And I think when you have a bunch of guys that can do that, it just makes your team much more dynamic. You know what I mean? You need speed on defense. It certainly helps to have speed on offense. It just makes you harder to defend, and it gives you more versatility on defense. So overall, I think it's the right move. I think it's a overall good strategy, as long as you're not trying to switch players' positions and teach them up and all that. That feels like low probability of panning out. But I liked what they did here.
And highlighted certainly by the safety out of South Carolina, Nick Omonwori. I mean, there wasn't a stat. I think he was like the best athlete at the combine.
According to the RAS score, the RAS score, this guy Math Bomb does it on Twitter and Blue Sky. He was Omonwori was the most athletic safety that he's ever tested, or that's in his database. So that kind of takes into account height, weight, speed, explosiveness based on jumps, and agility based on the 3-cone and the short shuttle and things.
Where do you think we would land on that?
Maybe in the not 0.0, but in the 0.1%. You know what I mean?
I think I'd be negative.
0.1.
0.1. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not hard to get caught up when you look at him to not just think of 31, not to think of Cam Chancellor. I mean, it's such an easy comparison when you look how big he is. He's the same size. He's actually faster. He's more athletic than him. And then the other comp is it's not just that. It's the fact that the guy that coached him at South Carolina also coached Cam Chancellor and is the one who told him, you remind me of Cam Chancellor. Because I was blown away when he was talking about how, oh, God, I've always looked up to Cam Chancellor. I'm like, you were like 8. I mean, like, how
That's
would
always
you?
weird when you start hearing people say that stuff. I
But
had a
then you
poster of him
read,
on my wall when I was a kid. I'm like, what?
yeah, but then you read more about him, and that is his coach, his position coach, was the same for as Cam Chancellor. So it's
Mhm.
the comp is, it fits. And you get excited about what they could do with him because of
Yeah.
how good Cam Chancellor was for the Seahawks.
Yeah, and I think it's probably unfair for Emanwari to be comped to
Sure.
Cam Chancellor because Chancellor was just one of one, or he was a very rare prospect in terms of his physicality, his willingness and gleefulness and absolutely blowing someone up over the middle of the field. That was Cam, and Emanwari is not like that. I do think Emanwari he can bring like an intimidation factor because he flies around. He's
Yeah.
almost out of control at times. His angles can be a little bit sketchy here and there, but he's definitely, flying around, showing off as his range, his athleticism. And I think, over the middle, you have to just be aware that he's there because he is just so big and physical. So, but I think comping him to Chancellor is probably not a great idea just because I don't think that they're that similar from style point of view. They are the same size, and obviously Emanwari is extremely fast, but he's not a Cam Chancellor type of player. I'll be very interested to see, how they deploy him because it doesn't really sound like they have like a specific plan, or if they do, they're not really telling us yet what the plan is with him. I've heard, playing him in the box, playing him over the slot, playing him even a little bit as a corner, like a de facto corner. I think he just gives them the versatility and the flexibility. And Mike McDonald obviously know more about this than I do, but just the way that you can rotate him to different spots on the field, kind of like interchangeability is always, I think, important in the Mike McDonald defense in terms of, you can rotate him as the snap happens, rotate him to place over the slot, rotate him to play outside or whatever. And then you can blitz from different angles. I think, they see this guy that's super versatile. I think that will help them. So very interested to see how they start to utilize him early on.
Jalen Milroe. What did you think right when you heard the name called?
I was very excited. Very excited. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy in the show.
Come on.
He was a guy, honestly, that I was excited about before the draft for the Seahawks. I was thinking, if the Seahawks come out of this draft with Jalen Milroe, I'm going to be very excited about that. He's the one guy, the one quarterback in this class outside of probably Cam Ward. And I don't even know if Cam Ward really qualifies for this, but Milroe is the one quarterback in this class where superhero quarterback is on the range of outcomes. You know what I mean? Where he is so fast, so explosive on the ground, a rare runner in terms of the quarterback position. And obviously he has a very strong arm as well. The arm strength is not an issue. It's just toggling between throws is what the issue. Basically everything he throws is a fastball. We need to teach him a couple extra pitches to kind of round out his repertoire. But hopefully that's where development comes in. Obviously, you hear a ton about his work ethic and just the type of guy he is. So hopefully that comes into play where he's improving each year, and 2-3 years down the line, maybe you got something and maybe you have a true lottery ticket there. So that's kind of like what I'm excited about. I don't want anyone to like get too excited about what's going to happen this year. They'll probably utilize him in the way that Justin Fields was used for the Steelers last year, where you bring him in on key third downs. It's just something, it's like a change up for the defense doesn't really know what to expect. You have to prepare for that type of deal when you're preparing for the Seahawks. So I think he could be utilized as that type of quarterback early on, but I'm thinking like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you might have the makings of a starter. This is the perfect developmental quarterback in the third round. I'm going to read you
an overview of a draft prospect. Okay. About this. All right.
Yeah.
I want you to just tell me if what you think about it. Likely to be the biggest boom or bust quarterback in the draft. Size and arm talent, prototypical for an early round pick. Rare to find a quarterback with such a low college completion rate that becomes a successful pro. The receivers struggled to separate, but plenty of times where his lack of anticipation and post-snap plan did him in. The strengths, prototype arm frame for a quarterback, sturdy base, rare arm strength, overall arm talent, all of that. Weaknesses, completion percentage, accuracy diminishes greatly, forced to move his feet. tries to overcome obstacles with his arm talent, makes poor decisions because of it. Do you think that summarizes that particular quarterback well?
Yes. Are you asking me who that is, you think?
Yeah, who do you think that is?
The two people that came to mind are Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson.
Oh, bang, you got Josh Allen.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I'm just picturing Josh Allen. He was
Does that sound familiar to
Wyoming?
How people are talking about Jalen Milroe?
Yes, 100%. There are a million cases where that scouting report did not work out, of course, but that's exactly what I'm talking about, where, at least there is the upside, the range of outcomes where if this guy develops and gets better and gets some really good players around him. I mean, Josh wasn't good until year 3, right? Like, I think we were going into year 3 and people were still like, I don't know. And then they traded for Stephon Diggs and everything came together. Now he's one of the most important players, if top 3 player in the NFL, maybe. And so that's kind of, where I am with the Milroe thing. Milroe's not as big as Josh Allen. So, again, just temper your expectations, but I'm very excited. I think like I said, it's the perfect 3rd round pick. 3rd rounders, for as much as we talk about them and groan about the Seahawks trading 3rd rounders, this, that, and the other thing, like 3rd rounders are dart throws. The 3rd rounders most of the time don't really do much for you. So this is a totally acceptable investment, I think, in a 3rd round pick, with the option of this turning into a franchise player and a very rare type of franchise player. So it probably won't happen. I think the odds of it happening are low, but I'm still excited to see kind of how they play this out.
It's just, if you look, and you're right. I mean, Josh Allen, sometimes you forget. You look at Milroe and you go, he's a big quarterback. He's 6'2", 217, almost 220. He is. Allen's 6'5", 237 pounds.
Right. Allen is a true alien. Like, he's actually one of the more rare prospects.
If you look at, I want to read you what I read was from NFL.com. That was Lance Zierlein talking about Josh Allen. And this is the write-up that he wrote about Milroe. I mean, it's identical.
I love that. I love doing this. This is a great exercise, by the way. I always
Milroe. Milroe is an explosive athlete who is very capable outside the pocket, but lacks accuracy, touch, and decision-making when he's inside the pocket. A lack of anticipation timing leads to interceptions and contested throws. But again, then you go to the strengths: unflinching when he delivers, throws in the face of imminent contact, has NFL arm strength, delivering drive throws with velocity. Ball comes down a split second if it needs to. Accuracy improves when he minds his weight transfer. Weakness, again, hurried and lacking rhythm when working from the pocket. Processing and decision making are troubling at times. Struggles with anticipating a throw. So again, they're not saying he's going to be Josh Allen. I'm just saying the concerns that a lot of people had about Josh Allen are the same concerns that people are going to have with Jalen Milroe. I'm just saying, I think there's hope. And if you look at they did the NFL Next Gen stats breakdown. So for Milroe, his production score was a 75. For Allen, it was a 74. His athleticism score at the combine for Milroe was a 99. It was number 1. Josh Allen was second at 78. And then the total score for Milroe, he was the second best tested quarterback there. He was second. And Allen, with a score of 81, Allen was 78. He was the 4th. So,
I mean, I don't think you could overstate how explosive and fast he is as a runner. He's actually an incredible talent as a runner, which is, again, at the very least, you've got a guy who can come in and kind of give a headache to the defense, because they can run these types of, I'm not saying trick play, but they can run these types of change up type formations and plays where he's coming in as a runner. Again, we saw Justin Fields do this for the Steelers. Every time they got into 3rd and short, instead of trying to have Russell Wilson drop back and complete a pass, which felt like, an absolute prayer half the time, they would just come in and run quarterback power, run a little bit of read option, basically just give the defense a change up and make them defend the mesh point. And it's difficult. It still is difficult to defend the read option, 10 years in or whatever of the rebirth of 15 years in of the rebirth of the read option. It's still difficult to defend. And so, that's at the very least what you get from him. And then, of course, if you can develop him as a passer, and honestly, there's enough throws on tape for him that I at least am open to the idea that he can develop as a passer. Right now, he's not there. And that's why he was a 3rd round pick. Like, you have to keep You have to keep your eye on reality. He was a 3rd-round pick for a reason. But again, the upside is scintillating just because strong arm, hard, like very good work ethic, incredible athlete. It lands in a good situation, honestly, where the fans probably not going to force him in early on, and not going to put the pressure on the team to put him in early on.
Yeah, if he has one good preseason game, they will.
It could be worse. Could be worse, to put it that way. I think this is a solid situation.
He doesn't have to play right. And here's the thing with him. He doesn't have to be thrust into the starting quarterback role right away. He can get himself a little bit of a bite of the apple because they said it. Hey, listen, we're gonna use him. And I like how they I like how they phrased the messaging too, because I think if they would have come out and said, well, no, he's going to be like our Swiss Army knife, like Clint Kubiak used Taysom Hill. Right. I think that would have been off-putting to Milroe, because Milroe's like, no, I'm a quarterback. I'm not that.
Right.
But that's how they're going to use him initially. Yeah. But I liked how McDonald and Schneider position the messaging early on. He's a quarterback. We're going to get him on the field. And so it's semantics of how they use it. They're going to put him on the field, not at their own 40-yard line and have him drop back on first down.
Yeah,
they're going to use him in the red
zone.
Not
doing 7-step drops. Yeah,
right. I mean, they know how they're going to use him. And I just think you give a defensive coordinator something else to think about this upcoming season.
Yeah. There's a very, very finite amount of time teams have to prepare for their opponents each week. You have to basically I don't know how the day breakdown goes, but it's like you have to design the game plan, and then you have to do install, and then you have to practice the plays. And by the time you're done doing that like once or twice, the week is almost over. And you have guys that are hurt and they're cycling in and out. It's just adding, basically forcing opponents to think about and practice defending these 3rd down packages. It's like what the Eagles do with the tush push. Teams have to dedicate time to how are we going to stop the tush push, and that takes away time from everything else.
Right.
And I think when you're talking about the Taysom Hill stuff, and I think Mike McDonald kind of laid this out when they asked about that. It's like Taysom Hill very much was running tight end and receiver routes at times. He was basically being used, kind of all over the formation. I don't see the Seahawks doing that at all with Jalen Milroe. They're not going to line him up as a tight end. They're not going to line him up out on the edge or out on the wing, I should say, and having him run routes. However, the Taysom Hill, that is essentially a wildcat quarterback, a fullback at times, basically that kind of stuff, line him up in the backfield and have him handling the ball on read options, on, wing T stuff, or whatever it is going to be. I think that's the type of, so he will be the Taysom Hill in that sense, but they were very clear to make it obvious this isn't going to be a guy we're going to be like, he's not going to be practicing running routes. You know what I mean? He's a quarterback.
Boy, you really got me excited there when you mentioned I'd love for an NFL team, once they got into the red zone, that would have an entire red zone offense running the wing T.
Yeah. I know. It's like exciting to think about
much money for that.
Like you go back to Cam Newton early on in his career, they were doing some really fun stuff with like veer, which is like old school stuff where you have multiple people running one direction, another guy going across the formation. It's just really like a ton of misdirection. The quarterback can keep it, he can hand off. You add that into the read option game where you're just doing straight read option stuff that everybody kind of knows now. There's just a lot of things you can build off of that and make it hard for a defense. And you see some of the best teams in the NFL doing that. Obviously, like the Ravens do it a ton with Lamar Jackson. The Bills do it a little bit in terms of design keepers for Josh Allen. He's basically just their trump card. If we need to make something happen, give it to Josh Allen. He'll figure it out. Yeah. And then of course the Eagles do it. There's just a ton of teams right now where it's not, gadget play has such a pejorative like feel to it. Saying gadget play, it's just like, oh, that's not gonna work. But I think what you're really talking about is, pieces of your offense, short yardage trump cards, essentially, where you can come in and like these are going to be really effective at a high rate. Talk about the red zone stuff. Like Cam Newton was one of the best red zone quarterbacks of all time because he was so powerful as a runner and so and also able to throw it. So I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things that they could do if they really want to. We'll see how much they actually utilize him, but I'm getting a little bit Milroe pilled in terms of what they can do with him, even early on.
My second favorite player. Well, Zabel's my favorite player, then probably Milroe. Okay, so my third favorite player is Robbie Oates. God, yes, a freaking fullback.
He looks like he's about 35 years old.
Yeah, he just the whole look at him. He just looks like a fullback.
Yep.
Sounds like a fullback.
Robbie Oots.
I mean, every time they're gonna give him the ball every now and again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very anti-adult wearing a jersey, but I'm gonna get an Oots jersey, especially if he wears 46, which is one of my favorite players growing up, David Hughes.
Wow.
For the Seattle Seahawks, 5th rounder. I loved what Dane Brugler wrote about him and what others said about him, but he had this line. Takes pride in laying out his body on every play. Throwback player with a gladiator mentality.
Ooh.
This guy, you know what he should say on his, like his business card? I don't care about CTE.
Oh God.
Like he's gonna wear a T-shirt that says Pro CTE.
Jeez. Yeah.
That's what he's gonna do. And please, I want him to do 2 things for me. I want a neck roll.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want all of his fingers with the white tape
on the knuckles.
On the knuckles,
yeah.
And then maybe an old school. One more, 2 old bike elbow guards. You know what I'm talking about?
The bike ones. What does that mean?
Bike? No, that was the brand.
Oh,
bike.
The brand. Oh, are you talking about like the big rubber like elbow guard things? Yeah.
I want those.
I'm into that.
He's got to tape. He's got to tape his knuckles, and he has to have a neck roll.
Mm-hmm. Does he have he has a mullet? Does he have a mullet?
Does he? I think so.
I mean, I feel like if he didn't, that would be a huge.
Maybe make sure. Hold on. Let's look up Robbie Oots. I mean, people are gonna love this.
Well, I found a picture of him with kind of like a mutton chop, so that'll work.
Okay. He wore 45 at Alabama, so we'll just go one up at 46.
He almost
look at the mustache.
He almost has like a Kenny Powers, a curly mullet going on. Yeah. Man,
looks like a cop. I mean, he's gonna be a cop for sure.
Yeah, they're saving his spot.
Oh my God! Well, Seattle Police Department. People aren't going out for it right now, so maybe they could use somebody.
There we go.
Man, he's
recruitment drive going.
He looks so big.
Apparently,
he is big.
Apparently, he's really fast too, which is interesting. Oh my God, I found a good one here where he's got like the sides of his head shaved and like the lines in them, and he's got like the mullet going on.
We're looking at the same one. My kid had that last year for baseball. It was one of the greatest ever.
This guy just looks
like the wife and CEO made him stop, but
dirtbag.
Yeah, dirtbag. Yeah. This is a guy that he's when you find out, like in training camp, he's living on the floor of some basement of some house that he's renting out. He'll have no furniture.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't have a cell phone.
Just loves ball.
Just loves ball. Man, I'm excited about it.
I heard something. Apparently, he's really fast. I can't remember where I heard this. It probably was Dane, but I think he was clocked at over 20 miles an hour one time on a play. Like he can get rolling. There was one play this season where Milroe, I think, threw a touchdown to him. It was like a leak play where they had all the misdirection go to the right, and then he kind of just like snuck out of the line.
Well, then let's start feeding him the ball.
There you go.
Let's give him the ball in the red zone.
This is probably realistically the real Taysom Hill. He's not as explosive as Taysom Hill, but they'll probably use him in some of the same ways in terms of, getting him out in space, let him run around.
He ran a 4.91 40.
So that's not so great.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
But when he gets really going.
Well, it's because he doesn't have his cape on, which is football uniform.
Right.
And here's the other thing too, is I want when he get a face mask, I want the bar that goes down the middle,
right,
with the line with the 2 bars that go across.
Right.
You know the one I'm talking about?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, what position is this guy? Is he listed as a fullback?
He's fullback.
Okay.
So this is what my red zone. I want Milroe at quarterback, this guy at center, and then my other favorite pick is Damian Martinez. The fact they got Damian Martinez in the 7th round is thievery.
I know, it's wild.
Thievery.
I thought it'd be like a 3rd rounder, 4th rounder at the most.
Dude, the guy was a beast in Oregon State, and he had a good year at Miami. So
yeah, the Seahawks have they have some really good running backs right now. I mean,
Ew.
Walker, Charbonnet, even I think McIntosh, super underrated. I've liked every time he touches the football. I'm like, okay, he's pretty good. And then I think Damian Martinez, if they don't end up re-signing Walker, there's a chance he ends up becoming the starter someday for this team.
For sure.
Or at least a rotational guy. So yeah, 7th round, that was a massive steal. I liked him. Fantasy guys liked him a lot coming into the draft. There was some people that had him in their like top 5 running backs. So yeah, that feels like a great value.
Danny, I'm sad because our time has come to an end today, and our time has come to an end talking NFL draft.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pick it back up, though, in the fall. We'll probably bug you a few more times once we get through, like, training camp and stuff. But, man, I love having you on. Love doing this. I'm glad you're doing it again. I'm glad we're ahead of our time 15 years ago.
If only we had kept the 12th man podcast going, we'd be bigger than Bill Simmons right now. I think.
God, I mean, Jesus, I feel like we should have some royalty for starting something
I would have been hiring
no one else
Bill.
was doing.
Yeah,
that's right. You would have been hiring Simmons. You hear that, Bill? He would have been you. Would have been the Danny Kelly podcast.
For those who don't understand the inside joke, Puck and I did a podcast together back in like 2011 or 12.
Yeah.
With Scott Enyart and we did it for a year or two. I can't remember exactly how long we did it, but man, those were the days.
Nobody else was doing it.
Yeah.
We're ahead of our time.
Exactly.
All right. Enjoy your off season. We'll catch up with you soon. Thanks, Danny.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, man.
Yeah, there he is. Danny B. Kelly from The Ringer. Follow him on all the social media platforms. Danny B. Kelly, Ringer NFL Draft Show host, senior staff writer at The Ringer. His appearance and all of our talk about the NFL Draft brought to you by Georgetown's new Tavern Beer. Easy drinking domestic style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops. 4.2%. Brewed by our good friends at Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's Pale Ale and Bodie Zaffa IPA. Let's ask our next guest about Damian Martinez. He knows. He saw him up close and personal. Ladies and gentlemen, from Portland, Oregon, it's John Canzano. Of course, JohnCanzano.com. His weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza, homegrown in the Northwest, Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on social media at John Canzano, BFT, the Bald Faith Truth radio show down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 the game. But, of course, JohnCanzano.com. How about Damian Martinez, 7th round?
Yeah, real value there. I mean, a physical runner, a guy that'll work hard, a guy that can handle the workload. I have no doubt that Damian Martinez can be successful at the next level. But it also kind of a cautionary tale about guys who are transferring. If he stays at Oregon State and he's their bell cow back last season, I think they have a better season with him. I think he has a better statistical season. And I'm not saying, he's a first, second, or third round pick, but I could see Damian Martinez in the 4th or 5th or 6th round. And I think he cost himself some money by going to Miami and making a couple $100,000 more.
Yeah. Well, because all the spotlight was on Cam Ward.
Yep.
That he was the prominent guy there at Miami. Well, I think it's a great landing spot for Martinez. There's a lot of Marshawn Lynch in him. There's a lot of comparables there between those two guys. All right, let's get to the meaty news. You got it. We talked about it last week. It finally comes out today, early this morning, all over it, the story. Fill our audience in. The Pac-2, they've reached a media deal.
Yes, 2025 deal for Oregon State and Washington State is done. It's finalized. The conference rolled it out this morning at 6 a.m. I had it about an hour before that, in print. I actually had it late last night, but everybody was sleeping, so what's the point? But, you've got some surprises in this deal. It was ESPN being part of the deal was interesting. That is that's normal ESPN. It's not ESPNU. It's not ESPN News. It's not ESPN Deportes. This is real ESPN taking 2 Pac-12 games. So longtime partner of the Pac-12 back in the fold, big exposure. Looks to me like ESPN's interested in Friday night and Saturday night games in the Pacific time zone. So keep that thought as we later talk about 2026. CBS being part of the deal, taking the Apple Cup game and then taking that first Oregon State, Washington State home and home game is interesting. That's regular CBS, not CBS Sportsline. That'll also be streamed on Paramount. So you've got broad exposure, 100% of households with CBS. And then the remaining 9 games, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, we knew it. It's the CW. It's a partner that has grown with the Pac-12, familiar with the Pac-12. Interesting to see the CW back in there. And for fans who are upset at that, I would tell you that is way better than being on the Pac-12 network back in the day. You've got 100% exposure. And then a little treat for fans, Puck, that your kickoff times, your home games. You don't have to wait for 6 days or 12 days before. So I think it was a home run from an exposure standpoint. We don't know the money yet. I'm assuming if it's similar to last year, it's like $1 million a game. So the Pac-12 said, Teresa Gold told me in November, they weren't looking for the partner who was paying the most money. They were looking for exposure, and they were looking for a real partnership. And I think they get that in this deal.
What do you read into the start times? You got 4 7:00 games for Oregon State and 3 for Washington State. What does that tell you about how these networks view these two and maybe view the conference moving forward?
Well, I think it tells us that there's an appetite for Friday nights and Saturday nights. And we saw it with the Fox games late and the ESPN games late last season. They're doing it with the Big 12. They're doing it with the Big 10. The Pac-12, I think we'd be foolish to think that the Pac-12 in 2026 and beyond is not going to have, a weekly Friday and a weekly Saturday night game. So I think those are here to stay. I do think that, you don't want all your games there. You and I want these games kicking off at 2:00 and 3:00, especially late in the season in Pullman. But I think there was a nice balance there where they got some earlier games to go with those 7 and 7:30s. But I definitely think like ESPN signaling in so many ways, because they not only took the Cal Oregon State game on Saturday night in the opening weekend, they asked Oregon State to move the Houston game in later in September and move it to a Friday night. And so that was what really caused the delay. You and I had talked about this a week ago. Oh, it's any time now. Well, the delay was being caused because Houston hadn't yet signed the contract to move the game to the Friday night. And so that caused about a week delay. The draft happened in the middle too. Probably wasn't attractive for the Pac-12 to release the deals, but just tells me ESPN's going, we like Friday nights, we like Saturday nights, and especially like them in the Pacific time zone.
Yeah, the one gripe that people are going to have is going to be the late night starts, just because of where they're going to travel to. But and again, I don't think anyone loves, if you're going to the game, loves those start times. But again, I said this earlier. I mean, beggars can't be choosers. I mean, you've got to take what you got to get. And that was the one thing that, at least for a college football fan for me last year, that was missing from the weekend schedule, Saturday night, is you would get done with these games that kicked off at 5, and then there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was over. And you're like, wait, there was too many weekends where I was sitting there at like 8:30 going, where's Arizona Cal? From Tucson. Where is that right now? Where's Washington State and Stanford kicking off? They just didn't exist. Yeah. So I think I'm with you. I think this is the future of it. Fans are going to have to get comfortable with it. But there's a time slot where this conference can really maximize their exposure, would be those later start times.
Yeah. And if you're getting ESPN, which by the way, there's a whole gambling element to being that last game on a Saturday night, right? Everybody's chasing their bets. I don't know why you noticed that there was no game, but I think, everybody's looking at that late night Friday and Saturday, and you watch these other conferences try to steal the after dark branding. Right. I think if you're ESPN or you're CBS or if you're the CW, you got to lean in with full force and go, hey, Pac-12 After Dark is back. And guess what? You can do this not just in 2025. I kind of expect that we're going to see that as part of the 26 deal that's coming, on the heels of this.
I just think it's a really, really big deal for these two schools for 2 games in particular. One is the Oregon State-Washington State game. That is a hell of a TV window. Yeah. 4:30 on CBS. That is prime time. And I don't know what they're going to be going up against on November 1st. I mean, I guess I could probably look at what the schedule is right now and guess. But that is a network that is in everyone's home, that everyone in the country is going to be able to see those two schools in prime time go at each other. And then the Apple Cup, the fact that CBS is, again, prime time, 4:30 or 5. Again, that is the best window you could possibly have that serves the entire country. And the Apple Cup gets that window. That's monstrous.
And from Washington State's standpoint, like I heard a little disappointment. Oh, the ESPN games are on Oregon State, and Washington State got the CW outside of the CBS games. But CW gives you 100% exposure to the country. Anybody can watch, anyone can tune in, same as CBS, 100% availability across the country. And that's valuable when you're trying to not disappear. And that's the mission in 2025 for Oregon State and Washington State. It's stay relevant, stay visible, let people know you're still out there. And I think they accomplished that in this deal. And then 26 becomes about, 5 years of trying to build brand, trying to get to the playoff, trying to position yourself for whatever comes next. I think Teresa Gold should be taking a victory lap right now. I think she got it right.
Tell our audience the quote from Bob Thompson along those lines. Does this look like it's the setup for what the media deal will look like beyond 25? Yeah,
Bob Thompson, for people who don't know, he's a retired Fox Sports Network's president. He's done these deals. This is the world he lives in. So I reached out to him late last night. He's watching an NHL hockey game, and I said, hey, deal's coming down the pipeline. Here it is. And his first takeaway was like, wow, look, they got the exposure that they needed. His second takeaway was the partners in 2025 will likely have in their contracts an option or some kind of right of refusal in 2026. So I do expect ESPN, CBS, and the CW to be in the room as they negotiate the 26 deal and what they have an appetite for. My own thinking is that the CW isn't a quote unquote primary partner moving forward in 26, that they may just take 9 games in 26. And they may say, hey, there's more room for ESPN to come in and grab a Friday night and grab a Saturday night every week during the season and just do Pac-12 After Dark on ESPN. There could be room for TNT or Turner to come in. They lost the NBA. They're certainly going to be interested in basketball. They've shown an interest in football. I think there's a potential for them to come in, and then for CBS to also be involved as well. I think you're going to have multiple partners in the room. I've been hearing from a lot of fans in Boise and fans in San Diego who are excited because they're looking over going, hey, ESPN is part of this deal. And look at the CW. We can get that channel and look at CBS. And it's better than what they had, Puck, in the Mountain West, where they were doing Fox, ending up on FS1 a lot, and they were doing CBS Sports Network, which it's not CBS. It's not big CBS. So I think the New World Pac-12 schools are all kind of intrigued at where it's going, and I won't be surprised to see these media partners back in the room in the bigger deal.
Yeah, that's what I would prefer. I would prefer what they have here for 25 to be what the deal is moving forward, where you've got whether it's majority of the games are on CW, fine, but there is a mix of exposure on ESPN and exposure on CBS. I know people have their feelings about ESPN. I get it. What it's turned into from what it used to be to what it is now, I understand it. But it is exposure to something that the majority of this country does watch. And you want to be mentioned on game day. Despite what game day is, turned into, you do want them like, all right, well, coming up today here on the Pac-12 is, yada, 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 which, they just were an afterthought a year ago.
Yeah. And in the shoulder programming that it gives you that glow of ESPN is such a value because you know what ESPN does. They're going to promote, hey, our Friday night, hey, our Saturday night, it's Pac-12 After Dark. Here comes Oregon State Cal. Here comes Oregon State Houston. They will shovel that coal. It won't be Caitlin Clark and Linsanity, but it'll have the undertones of, hey, our games are the best, and we've got these games coming up. And you got to face it, like, Oregon and Washington, UCLA, USC. You could go into Salt Lake and BYU and Arizona State. But beyond that, the Pac-12 really could own college football on Friday nights and Saturday nights in the Pacific time zone at 7:00. It can just be a window where you thrive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Agree with you. They really should just kind of lean into that. No doubt about it. All right. What does this mean now for expansion? Yeah. How much closer are we getting to expansion and finally adding, because they still need to add one more team to get to the full 8. So are we any closer?
Yeah, I think they are. And I think they're moving along. Now, I'm not expecting like the 26 deal and expansion to be imminently announced, because I think there's a few factors in play in the background. One of them is we've learned in the last week how long it takes to iron out, like moving a game from a Saturday to a Friday. It took like 7-8 days to get that contract signed. So you can see how slowly things move in the world of academia. But the other thing is you've got mediation with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. That stay from the Northern District Court expires in mid-May. I do think that there is some tie to that mediation discussion that is going to impact expansion, because if UNLV is in play for the Pac-12 and that's the school you're going to take, it may take here several weeks to get that ironed out with the Mountain West. Also, you've got, multiple partners involved. So I'm just being told not to hold my breath. Like, this isn't coming in a week or two, but they're moving towards that expansion piece. I think they know who they want, Puck. I think it's only going to be one school. Based on the feedback they got from their media partners, everybody kind of being interchangeable. You don't dilute your conference for interchangeable options. You don't take on multiple options. So I really am looking at UNLV. I'm looking at Memphis, and I'm looking at Texas State. I'm going, which of these three becomes the most attractive in the next month or so, because that may decide who the Pac-12 adds. And then beyond that, you tell me, Puck, Washington State and Oregon State are playing this home and home. And if you only add one member via the expansion, you might have to entertain the idea of everybody's playing a home and home against their rival.
I like it.
If you like it, it gives you more inventory to sell to media partners, because you're not going on the road to play non-conference games. You're adding another conference game, gives you more to sell. It's not unprecedented. People are, saying, oh, this has never happened. Liberty did it with New Mexico State, a few years ago. UConn did it in 1998. It always seems to be tied to expansion and problems getting games. But, if you're the Pac-12 and CBS and the CW say, hey, we like these games, we'll take them. Now you can do it with, rivals. You can say, all right, who's Boise State's rival every year? Who's Colorado State's rival? Who's San Diego State's rival? You'll play a home and home. That could be on the table. Also, I've also heard whispers about the possibility of maybe a crossover scheduling alliance between two of the non-Power 4 conferences, like the American and the Pac-12. All right, Tim Pernetti in the American and Teresa Golda in the Pac-12. Who's got the better conference? Can we settle this on the field? Because there's an automatic berth at stake for one of these conference champions. And if you're the Pac-12 and you feel like you're the better conference, let's strap it up and get on the field and prove it.
Well, it's kind of an NFL model, so it's and really college athletics and college football is going that way anyways. Speaking of the NFL draft wrapped up, I mean, it was one of the most embarrassing, I think, displays of broadcasting I think a lot of people have seen. And there's so much to unpack with how the whole Sanders thing unfolded. And of course, it's familiar here because they were in the, the Pac-12 in the last few years. And, no one looked good in this. No one. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what angered Mel Kiper so much. Now, I didn't watch the ESPN. I watched the NFL Network. And they didn't really, they talked about it, but it wasn't like it didn't dominate their coverage. Daniel Jeremiah was perplexed why he wasn't drafted, but wasn't crying about it. Mel Kiper, almost had an aneurysm about it. What did this tell us about maybe us or the media about how everyone focused and followed this story and covered it?
It's a great topic because there's so many tentacles to it. You can unwrap it. Let's start with ESPN and the media echo chamber that happens in the run-up to the draft. ESPN shovels coal. They're in the ratings and the entertainment business. They are not in the news and ethics business. They are pushing Linsanity. They are pushing Caitlin Clark. They are pushing Tebow Mania. They are pushing the Colorado narrative because it brings eyeballs to their shoulder programming and to their broadcasts where they're carrying these partners in these games. It is all about hysteria and getting people there. And so part of the Colorado story was built on, the hype of Colorado, and ESPN's the biggest hype man in the business. And so you've got ESPN with a vested interest in Sheduer Sanders and Travis Hunter being at the top of the draft and Travis Hunter winning the Heisman Trophy and Coach Prime, what did he say this week? And so it becomes this ongoing narrative. Now, that echo chamber is real. You get, especially in the run up to the draft, you get everybody eyeballing and rubbernecking on each other's mock drafts. Everybody's kind of building consensus. But in the background of that, the actual GMs of the NFL held the most important vote. And they looked over at Sheduer Sanders and they said, hey, he's got talent. We like his arm. He holds the ball too long, but we could work with him. But also, wow, what a distraction that comes with drafting him. Not only just sort of the reality television and the entitlement and the circus of the Colorado story, but he's also got his dad off to the side as a potential NFL coach someday. If you draft Sheduer, are you walking into a situation where you're going to have Prime calling for him to start, 4 weeks into the season? And then will there be cries like, fire the coach and hire Sheduer's dad to coach the team? Like, you're walking into a lot there. And the part of it that people kept asking me, why aren't they picking Sheduer? He was good enough to be a second, third, or fourth round pick. He absolutely was. All right. But they weren't picking him because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And they were going, he's not good enough for us to take on the distraction and the entitlement and all the noise that comes with drafting him, until he got to pick 144. And Cleveland did something no NFL team has ever done and said, we're going to pick back-to-back quarterbacks in a draft because we're just guessing. And he's a value now at 144. So, it was really kind of interesting to watch that all unfold. Mel Kiper and his outrage, it's totally rooted in he doesn't like being wrong. And he was hearing the noise on social media about how wrong he was. And the tantrum that he threw, I thought it was unprofessional. I thought it was embarrassing. But it's like, look, just admit you got it wrong. I mean, I think he also did not believe that Lamar Jackson was a first-round pick back in the day.
Well, I mean, but he's gotten plenty of. I mean, what the most embarrassing part was, ranting and raving about how people in the NFL don't understand how to evaluate quarterbacks. This is the same guy that said, "Listen, I will retire from this if Jimmy Clausen isn't a superior pro in a few years." Jimmy Clausen was one of the biggest busts in the NFL draft. So, I mean, guys get stuff wrong all the time. I mean, that's the problem with people in today's society. They just can't admit when they're wrong. I mean, we are in the opinion business. You give an opinion, you're wrong. We used to joke about this on the radio all the time. I mean, God, there's so many radio hosts that are just so fixated on in our business about being right. And there's no goddamn game show at the end of our award show. That's what our joke was. There's no award show at the end that goes, hey, John, you got this right.
Yeah.
Or, Jason, you got this right and you got this wrong. And no one's keeping score.
Yeah.
Other than yourself.
He so badly wanted to be right about Sheduer. Yeah. But part of the problem is, like, you're not an NFL GM. And I got news for you. The NFL is a meritocracy. The NFL GMs will draft a player with a character issue. They'll draft a player with a domestic violence issue. If you can play, they'll say he's a sensational guy. He's a good guy. You got to get to know him. And so the issue with Sheduer wasn't like he had, a criminal issue. It was more of the hassle and the distraction and the entitlement. He's not good enough for you to take him in spite of that. So, now he gets an opportunity to go prove everybody wrong, which is amazing. And by the way, so much of your success as a quarterback in that league is about the fit and the thing. And Cleveland has been such a dead end for quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel and Sheduer Sanders. I almost think, Puck, that the guy who it ends up better for is the one who loses that battle and gets released and picked up by somebody else. Like, it's just not a great situation. So I don't know if we're ever going to really get an answer as to, hey, who was the better pick?
You think that the owner, it seems like, and it's been talked about, the owner stepped in.
Yeah.
Why do you think the owner stepped in to do it?
100%. Jimmy Haslam and Dee Haslam, great. They made their money in the petroleum business. Frankly, Jimmy's father bought that first gas station, and then Jimmy's kind of just inherited it. All right. It's one of the things that's wrong with ownership in the professional sports leagues is you got people who have made money who think they have all the answers. Mm-hmm. The Haslam family, this was a family made a $230 million bet on Deshaun Watson. Okay. He's still on the roster, Puck. Yeah. They can't release him because of the cap hit that they're going to take. And so he's still kind of lurking in the background with the Achilles issue. And, they're paying him $46 million guaranteed this year. So you could tell from the reaction of the general manager and the coaches when they make the pick at 144, there are scouts in that room. There are coaches in that room who probably all wanted a good player that they know will help them right away. Wow. This is not a good football team. It's a 3-win team. And instead, they're picking back-to-back QBs because the Haslam family, once again, has dialed up the phone and said, hey, he's a real value here. I'd love to have him. It would bring a lot of interest to our organization. We might sell some tickets. But now you've got a circus going into training camp, and it's Dylan Gabriel, who probably interviewed better than anybody of the quarterbacks going into the draft. And you got Sheduer, who, his phone's ringing. He's on a Zoom call. He's going to pick up that call. I mean, I've interviewed him one-on-one. He doesn't come off well in a one-on-one interview. He comes off entitled. He's distracted.
No.
He's unnecessarily combative at times. I like his game, but I don't like him as a first round or a second round pick for sure.
Well, he's got a chance. I agree with you on all those fronts. He got a chance to turn around, though. I mean, he does. I mean, he's got an opportunity where he doesn't have to go in right away. And if he puts his head down and just works and just, I mean, he's still has a chance to become a pro. But it's just, the collusion, the blackballing. It was just embarrassing to watch people lose. This league doesn't do that for a guy that's a draft pick. They would never do that because it doesn't matter. It's wins and losses. I mean, my God, they Jalen Carter slid in the draft. This is the guy who got a car accident and left the girl for dead and walked away. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, but he's good at pressuring the quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't care.
These GMs are not going to – this had nothing to do with race. This had nothing to do with collusion.
Yeah.
This was simply the GM saying he's not good enough to justify picking him with all the distraction that comes with it. Sure. And then – at some point, he becomes a value. And at 144, Cleveland was like, we got to have him. We got to move up and get him.
All right. Just like you are a value.
Thank you.
That's what you are. You are a value. What do we got? What's coming down the pipeline at johncanzano.com?
Well, it's all about what's next. I'm always trying to look forward, but what's next in 2026 and beyond with the Pac-12? Where are they at? Is it really down to one school in expansion? If so, who is it? How deep is that list? But I think it's really interesting. I think all this stuff is fascinating. I dove into the Sheduer Sanders thing on Sunday because, I felt like I had something to say because I had interviewed the guy one-on-one and I had kind of a bad experience interviewing him. And, I love his game. I love his toughness, his moxie, but I wouldn't have picked him either.
Yeah, he can be off-putting for sure. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, man.
There he is, John Canzano, johncanzano.com. Weekly appearance brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. Go check out all of his work, again, at his website, johncanzano.com. You can also listen to his radio show that starts at 3 o'clock. The Bald Face Truth down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. Follow him on all the social media platforms, John Canzano, BFT. All right, busy Tuesday. It wraps up the Daily Puck Drop with this, Hey, What the Puck, brought to you by our good friends at Restoration One. Hey, you're going to get some damages to your house, maybe your personal property, commercial property. What it could be a fire damage, water damage, mold. Let the experts who are going to take care of you, and they're here in Seattle with their property restoration services. They are local, and they will do the best for you. Make them your first call when these damages affect your residential or commercial property. They're at Restoration 1-206-817-8917. Tell them Puck sent you, and say hello to Trent. All right, he wants to hear from you. All right, and tell him not to pitch any of his good players coming up soon, especially next week. Restoration1.com, North Seattle franchise brings you Hey, What the Puck. Along the lines of the news that John had it last week in the Pac-12 or Pac-2 media deal. The start times are going to be an issue for a lot of people. Oregon State's got 4 7 o'clock starts. Washington State's going to have 3. It's not ideal for those traveling, let's say, from the west side over to Pullman to go watch them play. Does it affect the West Siders more? I would beg that it probably affects more people from Spokane and the Tri-Cities. Again, where I sit, where we call it Little Spokane Valley, these people are coming over day of and then leaving right after the game. And for a game that kicks off at 7 o'clock, that's going to get over at 10:30-ish, 10 o'clock, 10:30, to jump in the car and drive another hour and a half, that's a long day. And it will maybe affect them more than it would affect people coming over from, let's say, Seattle. You leave in the morning, you can stay the night, but it will affect them as well, just because if there's not a change over there in the policy of how those hotels and motels operate, you are going to price people out. They have got to change something where you can just stay one night. Because if they continue to do this 2-night minimum and forcing people to come over on Friday, you're spending, again, I mentioned earlier in the show, buddy that's going over there for the Apple Cup, going to spend $1,000 on the Cougar Land Motel. Do yourself a favor and look up the Cougar Land Motel. That's $500 a night to stay there. They get away with it because they can. And so something on that front has got to change. I'm all about the exposure. I think they've got 3 great partners, at least for this upcoming season. I hope these are the partners moving forward. I know people have their thoughts on ESPN, but it's nice to have ESPN with them. The fact that Oregon State, it's too bad Washington State doesn't have a game on there, but the fact that Oregon State gets 2 of their games on ESPN, not ESPN2, not ESPN News, not ESPN Ocho, on ESPN. And I just don't discount the 2 big games for Wazoo at Oregon State, 4:30 or 5 kickoff on CBS. That is huge. And then the Apple Cup. It's not on Peacock, not with Colt McCoy on the call. Okay, this is on the Apple Cup on CBS at 4:30. That's prime time for the country, for all of it. That's a great, great deal for both Washington State and Oregon State. I hope it carries over beyond 25. All right, that's Hey What the Puck. Again, brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. They are locally owned and operated. Give them a call, 206-817-8917. Tell them Puck sent you. Restoration1.com is the website, North Seattle franchise. Big thanks to everybody watching and listening today. Thank you to all our sponsors, Lindbeck Lumber, Zeke's Pizza, Georgetown Brewery. Check out their new Tavern Beer at georgetownbeer.com. Find your local watering hole. Make sure they got Tavern Beer on tap. Also, Restoration One. Today's Daily Puck Drop up on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. Also, find the Daily Puck Drop and other content up on your favorite podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, whichever one you choose, and, of course, pucksports.com. When you're at pucksports.com, a couple of things. Please sign up to be a member of the Pucks Posse. It's just $5 a month, and you can get a discount if you sign up for a year. You get access to all the free content we do, plus exclusive shows as well, like our baseball coverage with our MLB insider, Ryan Divish, our new podcast, The Sports Pit, with KJR alum Steve Sandmeyer, Matt Stretch Johnson, and we now produce the world-renowned Graz and Gas Take 5 podcast, which you can find on YouTube and all podcast platforms, and, of course, up at pucksports.com. Also, when you're at pucksports.com, if you missed out on the Masters for the Puck the Picker Majors pool, you can get in as well for the PGA Championship, which is coming up next month. All details at pucksports.com. That's it for us. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a Wednesday edition of the show. Until then, as always, promise to be better.
No shoes, no dice.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!